Hello, good afternoon. This is P. Francis McNichol. Right now, I am doing a reading of Finding Her. I wrote the last couple days. Unfortunately, a brief introduction is it has to do with a person, a well-loved friend of mine, who I want to say passed away by 2011. She happened to be a heroin addict, and we had mad, passionate I want to say love between us at a point in her life in 1999 where she couldn't overcome her addiction and we had to split our ways before we actually, I want to say, decided to live life together and we were more of an item. And it saddened me because when I returned to Virginia years later and I got back on my feet when the economy fell out in 2008, I want to say I saw her between 2010, 2011 or so, maybe 2012, and she didn't make it because of her addiction. So when I think of inspiration, I think of things that I surely overcame, things that I need to heal from, things I did heal from. I think of things that are matters of the heart in general, with conflict that we have as authors, as artists, when we're putting wordsmiths, when we're putting our words together to make a good product of entertainment, so to speak. I love writing this, and a lot of my, I want to say, more darker poems I can go to without feeling that loss of back then. However, a symbiotic relationship where I feel certain things that inspire my heart to overcome, that have, I want to say, burdened my heart before, gives me inspiration. Though it is symbiotic, it doesn't mean it's the same thing. It doesn't mean I'm reliving that past that I overcame. I'm reminded of conflict, studying literature in general. You have conflict in everything an author writes. Okay, in all entertainment, you have conflict. Okay, you can have something, I want to say, so mundane and so flatline that that's its own joke, that's its own conflict, so to speak. And some artists on the groups, they try to expound upon that and they'll do something off the wall. Okay, another example of this when it comes to writing, poetry especially, is when they show a poem, but it's in the form of a pictogram, I believe is the actual terminology, making it different, and its words are saying something that's related to that picture that the words itself are making, okay, in that diagram, so to speak. So on and so forth. And that's trying to expound upon different things, okay, in different ways as we show our literature art, our digital art, because each digit we throw together conveys a message, okay? But that message has conflict, okay? Even if you use one word, you can say, damn it, for instance. That expresses conflict because someone's upset. The assumption is there's something wrong there. Let's investigate further. Let's read further. Let's experience this movie further. Okay, especially if the title just says one word like damn it. Okay, so on and so forth. So as we become proficient in writing more, poetry has not always been my game. But I have liked poetry since I was younger in high school, and I wrote some poems. Some poems right out of high school in my first year of college I wrote because of some bad relationships. Okay. And I was so mad at the time or sad at the time. And I decided to write them. And because it was like lashing out, it was like, okay, I need to get this out of me because I'm very upset at this point. And so it's part of the healing process. It's part of who we are. It's part of our hearts, our souls, all the things that make us who we are. And as I fight with this computer, I'm just going to get into the reading real quick, and I hope it does the actual words justice. and then I'll give a post-poem debriefing, so to speak. I hope you enjoy it. Finding Her by P. Francis. Missing my unknown love down a trail of lesser knowns, the light dim darkest in the sweet, sweet alone. Mending a broken heart, a void wholly unfilled, it filling me fully empty, where my dry tears spilled. Faces in clouds of ivory, sobbing on dark reefs of grief, as olden ships sink and swirl down a pearl massif. Awaiting the gloom to resume, from dusk to the morrow, my suns rise with the tides, trees shedding my sorrow. Leaves die, floating away with the feelings inside, blown in the windy hole I can't find when I cried. The birds never care, wallowing in whirlpools of fear, where Mother Mary slumped, overdosed in the rear. She is out there nowhere, stories whisper in hearts. In twilight, a harlot spiting God's work of art. On loan, death deals from an armada of pain. Aware of the outcomes, the drug hustler bills ordain. Short of breath, please leave me an ember of grace, helping cherish her death and maybe her taste. Twisted faces turn, dangling in daydreams, where the deepest abscess shadowed her screams. Chilled gusts are gifts when in agonies immense, as their pauper jeers tarred my wayfarer defense. The blaming game festers, she counting her scars, or parallel slits on her wrists behind bars. Needles collect in rivers of arms, adrift in lost souls. In a cesspool of fools down a lit chillum bowl. Colonies of ants burn alive in a faux rabbit hole. When I wake in a closed coffin of ashes and coal. Smoldering wisps of breath fill her urn with remorse. If scorched bees become fireflies off course. From high in the sky, sparks float onto a snow cone. As a razor cuts my throat in a red ocean of bone. She a rusting anchor, a corpse in steep cups of tea. My buoy failing her rescue, flagging the gravy. Bony aches in skin of crepe, trace a bent nape. Carrying chains that adorn my black band of crepe. Hole should never bear a pallbearer's shovel of soil, when spoiled tears are counted in downpours of toil. Crying on me dying, in puddles of horror and groan. Gray skies, and only friend beside her garden of stone. The end. That was Finding Her, and with some inspiration from my past as a police officer. It's kind of cliche, but a lot of police officers, when they're new, and the old timers would be joking with them, they would be talking about, oh, just wait till you find your first stinker, meaning the first dead body. You are called to check up on somebody in their house because they haven't checked in with family. from another state, let's say, for a while, and no one has heard from him, and there's mail building up in the front stoop. And they go in there with the landlord's key, and they go in there, and they're like, oh, that smell. Okay. It smells of death. Okay. But many police officers have found in, I want to say, abandoned buildings, people who have OD'd and no one knew they were there for days, and the smell started emanating outside of the broken windows. And this is in the big city, mind you. Okay, it might be a dilapidated, ghetto-like community where there's not many houses. It's more a tenement housing that is ran down and is about to be demolished in the next few years, so on and so forth. So it's sort of cliche. I've done one short horror story about a individual son, I want to say young in his 20s, experiencing school, college, wanted to be part of a band, became addicted to heroin, was shooting up all the time. And he kept on reliving his death because he went into an old abandoned gas station, and he's there on the other side of the counter. He shot up so he didn't get in trouble from the patrolling police in this bad neighborhood, and he overdosed. Okay. And so his body was found there kind of shriveled, wilted, so to speak. Lots of the fluids gone, the acid shrinking and eating up the tissue, and a lot of his flesh was, I want to say, hardening around his bones. Okay, they have words for that. I forgot all the terminology when you investigate a death report or a homicide, and you have to rule out certain things by the timing of the death and what might have transpired, especially the timing and who was with him or her at that time. And so it's kind of cliche in my history. Does it bring back bad memories? No, those memories are still there. I can live with them because they're not ruling my sleep. They're not ruining my sleep. And I want to say in a post-traumatic nature, I've come to grips with a lot of that, and I'm not ashamed to admit it in speaking with one-on-one people who've dealt with post-traumatic stress veterans, so on and so forth, dealing with my post-traumatic stress and shootings that have occurred on the force. I try to incorporate a lot of my dreams into a poem or so. But when I have a certain memory and there's a certain thing that sparked, it's the conflict I remember, but I've overcome it. I can do a symbiotic relationship with that poem and it not affect me because I am over the inspiration, so to speak. And I would like to think with everything we do, there is a solution to it, a happy ending. Okay? People don't want to watch movies, so to speak, that are all dystopian. Okay? People love sci-fi because they like to get in that mindset of humanity ending. And it's like, God doesn't want that. My personal belief is God doesn't want that with me to expound upon in literature and art, unless it's, I want to say, more expressive, artistic, something that can take somebody there in a dystopian world but bring them back because there's a happy ending. That's me. That's P. Francis McNichol. I can go anywhere with the words I write, and I'm happy to. So, referring to poetry in general, there's always conflict. I gave a comment earlier today. One person's nice bit of work. It was only like 3 smaller stanzas, and it had to do with, I'm assuming he saw this, antlers growing out of his thorax. And it was nicely done in a certain way. Okay. And I really appreciated reading that work, and it was part of some book or ensemble or something. And I don't have time to buy every book out there by new people that post stuff on Facebook. None of us do, to be honest. However, I noticed that he was rearranging words where he would say something and you would assume the next word would be coming, but it was switched with a different noun or a different adjective, or a different adjective and noun, or verb and noun, in certain mixes. And I was expressing to him, that's all well and good, but it looks like you're playing jumble now, so to speak. With our conflict, and we're writing a story. It has a beginning, it has a body, and it has a conclusion, the end of it, epilogue, prologue, how it's formatted, and all that stuff that are incidentals. But basic literature 101 is you have an introduction, you have a body, and you have a conclusion, the ending. Okay, there's three things. The story you want to tell, you want to bring people into your world, and you want to bring people into a vision you had. Do you want to stay there long if it's too negative? Do you want to show the happiness that can come from overcoming adversity, overcoming conflict, overcoming death, overcoming the loss of someone? And in this day and age, it's like we want to see a good story. We're okay with going there temporarily. It all depends on you as an artist, what you want to do. I don't want to stay in the doom and gloom forever. Okay? I've been there. I have plenty enough experience. I can write right now, sitting down, if someone paid me, 10 novels that would be bestsellers because they were true. Whether it's homeless, whether it's my police work, whether it's drug addiction that I've dealt with friends, whether it was overcoming abuse, whether it was a corrupt police department itself, whether it was a corrupt, judicial system. That could be another plot with many characters that were very unscrupulous. And I want to say who perjured themselves or made certain cases go away while they, pursued other cases, and it just wasn't fair, so on and so forth. And I can invent something out of whole cloth based on all these experiences of my past. And I do swear by this, and I challenge any traditional publisher that loves Trill of the Red Robin especially to publish that. But my challenge is give me a contract with, a set of 3 or 4 or 5 novels having to do with police work. It be fiction, okay? And I can do it from scratch without looking up anything, okay? Based on my experience, based on my professionalism and how I studied police work and how I applied it to the academy, and then applying it to the streets of DC and the court systems, and seeing the dynamics of the U.S. attorneys and the judges and the defense counsel, and them dismissing many cases for no reason. And I would have a better insight on corruption, or I want to say crime, and doing a suspense mystery crime novel better than James Patterson. I put my name on the line saying that because of my experience, not researching something like he has to. Now, I heard that Mr. Patterson has done some ride-alongs and has done some research in a lot of his crime novels. However, I don't like his style. I don't like his 3-page chapters. They are basically, I want to say, bipolar in nature. They don't always connect. Even in the end of the novel, they surely don't always connect chapter to chapter in succession. Sorry, my mouth is getting dry right now. And I challenge any publisher to actually promote me ahead of time and front a book deal for crime suspense, crime mystery in particular. And I would not have to research a certain thing because of that conflict I saw firsthand, that symbiotic conflict. It's not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom, but the conflict of good versus bad, up versus down, hot versus cold, male versus female, okay, right versus wrong, so on and so forth. And I just love writing anyways. I would like to do a good product because of that inspiration, that experience, that overcoming, the end result. And practicing at writing, poetry is just another avenue, another venue, another vehicle to do that. And I love doing poetry, but do we want to stay there constantly in a certain mindset? Do we always want to write something sci fi and dystopian? Some people do. They do because there's a market for it. And I want to say a lot of negative people who incorporate certain visions of a dystopian fantasy and are kind of fatalistic, maybe. If that's your niche, hey, more power to you. As a Christian, I like to show that I can go there in that dystopian world and stay there if I have to, and then come back and really enjoy a better outcome and prove that I can do better than those sci-fi authors. My favorite movie of all time was written, or the screenplay was written by a husband and wife team, I believe it was, 12 Monkeys. Okay, I love the movie because I love the soundtrack. It was just kind of odd, you know. The music was, what do you call it, steampunk? Kind of old, archaic, kind of old world, European, maybe Italian, maybe Romanian kind of horn, or, God, what's the name of it? I forget the name of the instrument. But basically, you know, it had that weird harmonica sound to it. And it was just a great soundtrack. But they didn't overdo it. They went around in circles with some of that time warp stuff, that time machine stuff. And they don't use that so much. They made it just believable enough. It was interesting to do. It was fun to do. And it was believable because of James Cole, you know, Bruce Willis, and so on and so forth. Great movie. It was for its larger budget. It wasn't super overdone with action-packed scenes, and it showed more of the human interaction and him being a less smart individual from the future, because when the viral outbreak occurred, he was a kid, so he didn't have all the education that a normal adult would have. He was just sent back to the past to keep on continuing the future, so the scientists always stay in power. Remind you of something like COVID? Okay, Fauci, them always trying to oppress us, making up disease from scratch that's more contagious. And yeah, some people can die, older people that can't process vitamin D3 and have an immune system. And they're okay with that because then they can oppress the other 97% of humanity by fear, you know. So you see the 12 monkeys and you're like, wow, they went there, you know. They went there in a dystopian future, but it was interesting in that the future was not all it was cracked up to be, and the scientists that were in charge had to go back to the past to affect their future constantly, in a swirling, revolving door of power that they only controlled. Okay, do you want to do dystopian stuff like that and never have a happy ending? Or stay there where humanity is doomed? I'm reminded of another movie. I forget the name. I honestly did. That had to do with zombies. And this one girl was the key to survival of the human species. However, when she went out and they had to leave the military compound, she saw that there was, I want to say, zombies that were genetic mutations of part human, part zombie, part, I want to say, alien being or plant material, which made them alien. And they were the only ones that could survive, in essence, a zombie bite, a zombie infection. And it was there to show that humanity is always wrong. You know, So humanity doesn't have the right to continue to exist kind of feeling of dystopia. And so she was basically the teacher now in one part of the dilapidated, falling apart city where the people that were a mix of zombie, human, and I want to say plant, or maybe it was alien, I don't remember what it was, were the only ones that survived and could survive because that's what humanity evolved into. It's like, I'm still talking about it, so technically you can say it worked, but was it good? The critics' judgment are still out there because the movie didn't do too well. I can see it. It's a nice spin on zombies, evolution, but it was very dystopian and very dreadful. That's not P. Francis McNichol style, and that's not the way I am. I want to go there. I want to go there, and I want to show solutions and happy endings. If not happy endings, something similar to that, where it's leaving you, okay, questioning, okay, but in a good way, in a positive way. When we have tragedy occur to us, it's okay to go there. It's okay to stay there and show how you bettered yourself because of it. Was it from friends? Was it from a job? Was it from a hobby? Was it from a self-help group? Okay. Never be ashamed to express yourself in any kind of digital arts, like poetry, like prose, like novellas, like novels, like whole stories, so that the next person who reads it understands that, hey, they're not alone. There is something positive about this, regardless of how bad it is. The negativity, I mean, the dreadfulness, the sorrow, the sadness, the loss. That's conflict. And that's why we write, because we're expressing from our hearts that inspiration to begin with. And it all comes from somewhere. The question is, do we want to do fiction or nonfiction? That's the only question that you should ever ask yourself. Get out there and write no matter what. Just remember, you can always come back. You can go back there as far as you want, but come back too. Show the positive with the negative. Excuse me, the conflict. There's conflict, and there's the solution at the end. Okay? The evolution, so to speak. Anyways, enjoy yourself, guys. I hope you enjoyed this reading of Finding Her by P. Francis McNichol, otherwise known as Phil to my friends. And I thank you guys for your time and energy. Please have a wonderful weekend coming up. Take care.